Hello everyone, this is Lorena and I'm back with another Duelings video. So I went to sleep and I decided to do that just in case I'm my sister's next target, and I'm just thinking, she's pissed at me. I have no idea what to expect when she gets home. But I do feel very fantastic. I'm just like, sure, she's pissed at me because I'm not heartless. But also, I don't actually care that she's mad at me because I care more about my dad's well-being than whatever bullshit's going through her mind. She was horrible enough to make me relate to you, Belle, more than Aki. So there may be something to call into question there, but I don't think that would make sense unless, of course, my sister did a bunch of shit and it was enough to make me go batshit. Which, of course, sometimes I do feel batshit, especially when she's going off about how terrible of a mother my mom is. No, my mom isn't bad. You're just being annoying and a brat. You're entitled. I think her entitlement is the main thing that caused me to switch over. Because, yes, she's abusive, but if she wasn't entitled, I think there might be some hope, but there isn't, because she's entitled. She won't see the damage she's done. She refuses to acknowledge she refuses to take responsibility for shit. And this is bad because it causes me to be in a bit of a situation where I can't actually communicate with her regarding the issues I have with her. I can't just talk to her about this like in a respectful fashion because she's just going to scream at me and abuse me. And okay, she could do that today, but at the very least, she picked a very interesting day to do it. She probably wants me to burn in hell, but I don't care because I apparently decided it was a good idea to name my protagonist father. I decided to name her father Lucifer for some reason, but that's just because I thought it was an interesting idea. I couldn't come up with anything better, guys. I was stuck. So I'm just like, okay. Based on the established lore, I guess I'll just go with the lore. Like, screw having to think. Screw that. That's the actual reason I decided to name her dad Lucifer. Aside, I mean, yes, it's not very creative, but I was just like, I've been creative enough. I'm tired of this shit. But yeah, I'm just like, sure. Yeah, you can tell me to go to hell, but I joke about owning it. So sure. I've been through a lot of shit, you know. She doesn't know that. She doesn't know all the shit I've been through, and also, exactly how does she plan for me to actually get to hell anyway? I'm not doing anything that bad. Well, okay, maybe Christians would say otherwise, considering they're the ones that created the concept of hell, in my opinion. But yes, I'm not perfect. No, that doesn't mean I'm going to hell when I die, because no one knows the answer to that. No one knows what happens when you die. Some people think nothing happens when you die. Do I agree with that? Well, it doesn't matter if I agree if those people are right. We don't know if they're right, though, so I'm allowed to believe whatever the hell I want. The big thing that gets to me with my sister is she's like, I don't want to go to therapy. Okay, but that's kind of like a luxury. Why wouldn't you go to therapy? I mean, you've got the privilege to get it. Not everyone does. What's wrong with it anyway? Mom goes to therapy, I go to therapy. We're not insulting you by telling you to get to... We're not insulting you by telling you to go to therapy. That can't be possible. We have therapists. And my dad has agreed to go to therapy, but the condition is that my sister actually makes an active effort to improve her behavior. And I agree, she should make this effort. Because it's not just about how she treats me, and Dad, and my mom, and even my brother. It's about her future. If she wants a better future, then she should learn to behave, or who knows what will happen to her. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that I don't like how she behaves. And it's mainly because I can just see this going downhill later. Like, when my mom isn't around anymore, she may not have much of a life left after that, because she may just ruin it. And now, I know that she has some mental illnesses, and I know that some of those are a side effect of her trauma, but she doesn't get to invalidate my trauma just because she's traumatized. Hell, she doesn't get to disagree that she's traumatized, because she is. She doesn't even know she's traumatized, but she's been told that over and over. And she's like, I'm not traumatized. Nothing happened to me in Africa. I'm just like, yes, something did. That's how you got here. That's how you got your many issues. And sure, maybe my brother and my dad did do something that made her deeply uncomfortable. And maybe even traumatized. But it did not start with them. They were only able to do that because of pre-existing trauma. That's it. Now, the worst thing about this entire situation is not that she made me start relating to you, Belle, more than any other character. It's the fact that I know that had things gone differently, she would have been a great person to be around. She's not all bad, but she acts like she just needs to have everything about her at all times. And I'm just like, that's not realistic, ever. You're going to go out in the real world and they're not going to cater to you. And plus, in my head, I'm just like, listen, dude, listen, honey. I know you've been through some shit, but I've been through so much. You have no idea. And I'm not going to tell her because, yeah, I've been through some shit, but again, it's not appropriate for me to just go up and tell her. No, I'm not going to tell her that. But what everything I've been through, she's been through it at much more severe levels, at a much lower age. And it was so bad, it was so early in her development as a child that it affected her brain's development. Now, do I know how much of this is because of her trauma? No, I don't. But her trauma definitely has something to do with this. And I still hate that people are just like, poor her. You have to think about what she's been through and all that. Okay, what about what I've been through, though? Because I've been through some shit. There needs to be some consideration for my shit. Not just hers, because I've been through plenty of shit. And I know that this doesn't mean that she gets... I want my sister to feel safe. I want her to feel happy. I want her to be capable of being a stable adult. But she doesn't get to hurt people. She doesn't get to hurt people. That's not good. I mean, seriously, I'm as human as everyone else. I don't want to live in a house where people are screaming at each other. That's not healthy for anyone. I don't care who you are. If you grow up in a household where people are screaming at each other, that's not healthy for you. That's probably going to leave its mark. But my sister thinks that I'm fine No, listen, honey, I'm not fine. When I relate the most to you, Belle, you know I'm not fine. But I guess I'm just sitting here thinking, but is that true? Is that claim actually true? And because I didn't know you even had abandonment issues until my sister came along. And then I was like, I feel like I'm insulting her because she was actually abandoned and I wasn't. But then I'm just like, but these issues exist. These issues exist. There's no debate. So do I feel bad because they exist, or do I acknowledge that something happened that created them legitimately? Something happened that created these issues legitimately. Do I feel bad about that? No, not anymore. Especially not because my sister is entitled, so I no longer feel bad. But I think there's just something about how she behaves that makes me feel like I should not feel bad. Because if I do, that she's winning. I don't want her to win. And now, admittedly, I still feel like, why do these issues develop? But I do think there's a good chance that it's not about feeling abandoned in the same way that my sister was. It's about feeling abandoned on an emotional level, which would be the reason I consider myself to have no idea what emotions are. I'm like, emotions? What emotions? Yeah, because from a young age, it wasn't as young as she was, but after what happened to me, I was just like, I don't want to talk anymore. I just closed up. I didn't want to talk about what happened to me, though I did manage to learn what happened to me. And when I did, it was through it was disturbing. And now I'm just like, how did I learn about this? But it doesn't matter because my mom still needed to know what actually happened to me on that day. Like, I couldn't tell her. I was way too young. And my sister makes all these claims, and I'm just like, okay, if some of those claims were legitimate and true, I would be much, much worse, okay? I think I'd be traumatized in a much worse, like, there'd be no debate. Like, sure, I get it, that sometimes, but I'm not going to actually go into the details of what she said. It's not appropriate for YouTube. YouTube would destroy me, but I do feel like her feelings are just, she blows things out of proportion, but it's also she warps the story to be something else because she doesn't actually fully understand what's going on, and she doesn't actually accept that her responses are because of trauma. Dude, I know I'm traumatized. That's depressing, but it's also depressing that she doesn't agree that she's traumatized. Okay, listen. I'm not going to invalidate her trauma. It's serious shit. But she shouldn't invalidate mine, and she shouldn't act like there's nothing wrong with me. There is, but I'm still starting to wonder if do I ever relate more to Aki than you, Belle? Was that ever true? Anyway, right after I stopped recording, I noticed Kite I noticed Kite was here, and I thought that was funny. But I also cannot prove that he was here because I stopped recording, so now there's no evidence that he was here, and I could have just walked away and he could have just respawned here long after I stopped recording, just conveniently. But the roster is small, so when I talked about Kite possibly potentially being here, and it would still be the same, I would still have the exact same thing to say. Well, okay, let me show you his level. Yeah, do you guys think that maybe I decided I don't care. I don't want to duel him. Do you guys think that maybe I didn't want to duel him? Anyone? I don't. But if I lose this, can this please be a good sign? Please? Please? Duel Links is just like, no. If you're paired against Kite or paired against Kite, deal with it. I'm like, okay. Okay, I can't stop you from pairing me against Kite, but please don't! Duel Links is merciless. It will do whatever it wants. I'm at the mercy of the RNG. If I lose this, that doesn't mean I'm safe. It doesn't mean shit. But also, if I do lose, it will be in standard Studio Gallop fashion. It will be awful. But, you know, I would rather lose this than go into the KC Cup and lose against Kite there. But so many people are losing. I mean, Kite is everywhere right now. Can he please not survive this one? Can Konami finally nerf his deck? I think Solomon Great players can enjoy their deck a bit longer. Just nerf Kites this time. Yes, I'm saying that Solomon Greats probably don't need to be hit at this time. I'm saying that hit Kite first. Give Solomon Great players more time to enjoy their deck, then hit them. That doesn't mean that they aren't going to hit Solomon Greats, but also, how do they hit Kite's deck anyway? I'm not sure, but whatever they do, I'm pretty sure that nerfing the skill is a good idea. I'm not sure how they should nerf it though. I have no idea how they should nerf that skill. And I believe I won that, so that's probably not a good idea. You know, whatever logic I don't know, my logic isn't always that great. Which is why I'm questioning. Who have I always related to the most? Was I always, like, seriously, I had to be honest with myself every now and then. Is it true? But I do think to some extent, I do relate more to you, Belle, compared to how much I used to, because, well, I still didn't know I had abandonment issues until my sister was adopted and she was here. Sure, she was very, very young when I learned about them, but I didn't know they were there for a long time. And you may not even believe how I learned about them being a thing, because, well, that's just what happens when people think I'm talking bullshit. You don't really believe that I learned about a thing because a thing happened. You don't believe my story because you don't believe the main point of it. Which is, okay, fine, you don't believe what I'm saying, but that doesn't mean my abandonment issues aren't still there. And in terms of abandonment issues, I'm not really sure. I mean, okay, I've read Ebel's page, and I'm just like, wait a minute. That's a dub thing? Okay, yeah, okay. You know, I'm not... You know, I was surprised when I read that, because I'm just like... Sure, Ebel spent time in space, but 4Kids, you expect me to believe. And that they came back just to get revenge. Yeah, I doubt that. Even in the dub. Yeah, I know what you tried to establish, 4Kids, but you failed. You failed. Me as a child, okay, fine, but I was pretty much there with Jaden during Bastion's duel against Tanya. I was pretty much saying the same thing. I'm just like, oh my god. And you know that's what I was like, because that's my whole problem with Blair. I was just like, oh my god. This is terrifying. Yes, love is terrifying. Well, seriously, after you bail, maybe you should consider that maybe sometimes love is terrifying. And because you belted all of that shit in the name of love. Yeah, toxic love if you ask me, but I do believe they got better. I believe they got better, we just didn't get to see it all. Which was a shame. A painful shame. But, you know, I've got my headcanons. And my beliefs, whether you believe they're legit or not. And many people probably don't believe what I say half the time, but sometimes I deserve it, other times I don't. Oh my god. No, I just don't want people thinking that I've been through nothing. I don't want people to act like what my sister is doing is because her trauma is more legitimate than mine. Let's not compare scars, okay? My sister went through some shit and so did I. If her trauma is valid, so is mine. If she went through a bunch of shit, then so did I, and there should be... We shouldn't play favorites just because she's a minor. She's not always going to be one. And I was traumatized by a minor. And because we're not being responsible with how minors are treated. We're letting minors go through shit and we're not doing anything about it. We should stop minors from being in harmful situations that cause them to be in this situation. We should prevent minors from turning out like this. I mean, I could have turned out worse. I probably would have if it wasn't for this franchise. Because imagine that. Imagine fiction helping someone. Imagine feeling so close and so happy and comforted by a series and a franchise. So comforted and at peace with it that you're just like, this makes me feel safe. I feel at home here. Imagine the feels. Imagine that being enough to stop you from becoming a total bitch. And now I realize I'm pretty bad and cursed at times, but I know more about my inner child than I ever have in the past. Like this isn't a situation that's all black and white, okay? In some ways, I've benefited from my sister being like this because apparently dark shit helps me sometimes. Okay, that's weird, but it does. But that still doesn't mean her behavior is okay, which is my problem with it. Like, seriously, honey, get some therapy and actually be okay with that. I know you've been through some shit. You should acknowledge it. Don't invalidate my trauma, but especially don't invalidate your own because it's hurting people. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap things up for this video. In the next video, I'm going to go back to the KC Cup and hopefully I will get lucky. I hope. Please, RNG, please help me. I need to get out of this hell.